Welcome back to another episode of our Wyckoff crypto discussion. As usual, today we will study the crypto market through the lens of the Wyckoff method. This information is for educational purpose only, it's not an investment recommendation. Please stop the video and read the disclaimer. We have launched our Discord channel in early February. Here's the link to join our community. Here you will find our market updates on Bitcoin, crypto indexes, altcoins, and so on. This is also a great place where you can discuss about tactics with other traders. And in this month, we have received many comments from you. We are so grateful. So please keep sending your charts. In the last week, we have seen that institutions are reducing their exposure to tech stocks. The Nasdaq index has shown some vulnerability. High volume on the down bars followed by poor lift. We are now currently on the support of this consolidation, and bulls must defend this level. The price action is unfolding as we speak, and today's close will be very, very important. When we compare the structure of Bitcoin to the Nasdaq, we can still find several pockets of outperformance, but I think that it's crucial to show the context of the market, especially at this structural spot, where we already have seen some profit taking in major crypto assets in late February. Keep in mind that crypto is a low liquidity, very speculative market. For this reason, any vulnerability in the stock market can at least temporarily affect cryptos. That said, we have to see today's close, and we have to be very tactical. Roman, you have discussed many scenarios this week in the Wyckoff trading course and also in the Wyckoff market discussion. What do you see here?
We're talking about NASDAQ, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, there are quite a lot of interesting analogs from the past where this type of structure, where we have some demand coming in and then inability to overcome specific resistance. And isn't that reminiscent of what we're seeing in cryptos right now? Kind of the same, right? So a very important bar where the sellers not sellers, where the buyers capitulate and then they can't push through this level. It usually gets resolved first to the downside, but as Alessio has said, we need to see what's going to happen here. I also don't like the overall increase in volatility, right? So we see increase of volatility in this area relative to the rise. And then look at this volatility. It actually goes higher than this area right here. And it is associated with the increase in the volume. So those are very cautionary signs for us to think that there might be some kind of continuation to the downside, or at the minimum, we're just consolidating in this trading range. So, Alessio, I guess my question is, how would that relate to the Bitcoin itself?
Yes, we have to see, because crypto is a very low liquidity environment, so it's very sensitive to any kind of shakeout in the market. So for this reason, I want to be very conservative this spot, Roman.
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, remember when we were going through this trading range and we said that, most likely we're going to have some kind of sign of strength and then coming back into the middle of the range, and then from there we go up again. I'm still kind of thinking that maybe this could be a scenario here, Alessio, with the Bitcoin. It's just that it's much larger of a structure. So usually people would look at the structure and they would not make this distinction as to the big extent that the structure could take. What if, let's say we're failing here, right? And then we're failing here, and maybe like 1-to-1, this type of relationship, and we still come back to the trading range, and then we start consolidating here, and going up. Alternatively, right, so we're looking at this trading range. Could we stay in this trading range so that we would be above this structure? What are your thoughts on different scenarios with Bitcoin?
I like both scenarios, Roman. The next slide we have the daily perspective
Okay.
of Bitcoin,
Yep, let's
much
do that.
bigger picture. So
Uh-huh.
let's go to that. So let's recap the Wyckoff story here. What are the areas where we have seen buying lately? So we have the area defined by the big up bar at point 1, which is a very important demand zone. And we have seen demand coming in again on this level at point 2. Look at the demand tail on the down bar. After that, supply and down spreads are decreasing. So what happens when the supply decreases? We expect generally a rally, and we released an update on our Discord channel. The rally has developed, and we are now approaching a very critical level, the top of the capitulation bar where supplies emerged last week. So this is the blue area, is an area where I would love to see signs of absorption. And we have to be open to many scenarios. How much supply will come around this critical level? Roman, I think that here the Wyckoff story is not the story of the demand. If this whole formation is a reaccumulation structure, and I think so, buyers have probably already bought around the 30,000 level, then on the way up, and finally on that shakeout. And now they are sitting on their hands. So in the next days, we have to check how much supply will come at this point and what kind of result it will produce. So let's say that we see decrease in supply and diminished result to the downside, and we consolidate in the blue area. That would be a bullish scenario, but very unnerving for intraday traders that would be forced to quickly switch from longs to shorts. Otherwise, if supply comes in and we start to see easier movement to the downside, that would be a very concerning sign for the short-term picture at least. So I really want to be flexible in the current environment. And as usual, we release our updates on Discord. So Roman, your final thoughts on Bitcoin?
Well, there are stages through which, let's say, reaccumulation unfolds, right? So we have the first stage of the change of behavior. This is where the price goes down and increases the downward swing. It also increases the volume signature because people are selling. So this is the first stage. The second stage is going to be, and at this stage also demand is going up, right? So I call this kind of like a battle because there is both buying and selling. And we could see this from both bars off the top. Then we go into the exhaustion phase. So this is where buyers has bought, sellers have sold. And that exhaustion phase usually is going to produce one counter attempt, to the actual trend. So here's this attempt. And that's why, both Alyssa and I were saying that this is a very important level. Would we overcome this? And we don't have to overcome this a lot. We just need to have the ability to go above it, and then we could come back, and then we could consolidate here. But if we don't come back, and if we don't even touch it, then that becomes a point of vulnerability, because demand comes on these two bars on the way down and then on the way up. And then what happens with the demand? Lower demand and lower result. So we kind of see that resistance going into that, into the upper portion of that bar, and that creates a little bit more weakness. Well, if weakness is to develop, then what's next, right? So first level where we're failing, this bar, then we're failing one half of this spread, and then we're failing this level right here. So here is like a cascade that could unfold. And if we are kind of doing what we're doing with NASDAQ, then we could potentially go into the low of this bar right here. And then, 40,000 that we've talked about in the 1, 2, 3 type of formation, ABC could be possible. So again, we just have to see, looking at NASDAQ right now as we even record and at other markets, everything is weak. So there is a lot of profit taking, a lot of selling. This could be throughout the whole market. Even though we talk about rotation, from let's say growth stocks to value stocks. Value stocks also could be sold just on profit taking. So we might see some kind of continuation of the weakness. I guess this is just one thought that I want to give you guys. All right, Alessio, what's next?
So the crypto indexes, well, I see that the altcoin index, midcap, DeFi have performed quite well after the shakeout. But now we are just hugging the resistance, and this is a very important level. So I would like to see a clear commitment about this level before opening, for example, swing trades to the upside. I'm very I want to be very tactical at this point, like intraday trades, something like that, but not a lot of swing trades to the upside at this structural point. And I suspect that this consolidation could still continue for a while because our point and figure target suggests that we still need to consolidate here. You're Max or Mark?
Yeah, I would agree with this. I mean, like this is not an extremely bullish look unless we start like producing some demand, and the price cannot just move up at this point. It has to have some backend behind it, so demand needs to increase. So if we see that, then that would be bullish. But overall, we come to the resistance and then we stop. And it's a natural place to stop. But in the bullish scenario, we will overcome the resistance and stop there. So this is a somewhat a weaker look.
And we could see also some kind of rotation within the DeFi sector. So basically, there are a lot of assets that are just sitting on very oversold price levels, and we could see a rotation. So money can come to this oversold cryptocurrency, and we are already at the same time we are already seeing some profit taking in very important assets like Polkadot that performed so well in the last bull cycle. But look at this PNF chart right now. We have fulfilled the aggressive count. Then a change of behavior has occurred, and we are retesting the top of the capitulation bar at 0.2, where supply has emerged. So I think this is a very very important structural point, because if price fails here, we could create a lower low. This is a possibility, or we could just reside in this trading range that could still last for a while. So we have to build another reaccumulation cause here. And I think that this PNF chart is extremely important. Your remarks, Roman?
Well, first of all, guys, we've talked for a couple of weeks now about the change of behavior and what it does, right? So a change of behavior suggests stop in action, change of environment, right? So we started talking about the trading range, and hopefully that message was clear enough, for you to hear. So could there be that there is an original accumulation that has been already fulfilled in terms of the targets, and then we could have another potential trading range? Well, first of all, yes to that question, right? So we could have a trading range here. That's number one. Secondly, we need to figure out the bias of that trading range. So in that, sometimes you can't really say at the beginning in initial phases in phase A. You might have to wait and see more data coming in as to how the price will unfold. So for instance, if we are having some kind of sign of weakness and then come back into the trading range, that shows either availability of the supply or inability of the demand to sustain the prices at this level. So we would have to see. We just still have to wait and see how this trading range unfolds. Another thought here, and Alessia, I want to ask for your advice here. So I actually do have a position in Polkadot.
Yes.
That was not necessarily my entry, let's say, kind of like, a long-term entry. This was more of a swing intraday type of entry. And I'm realizing I probably should have closed it here. But this is a really good opportunity to close it again, because in our WTC trade management portion of the course, we talk about how we want to get out on the way up, on the way down, and then on the way up again. So these are the areas where we want to get out. So I'm in this area. So what do you think, Alessio? With all of the weakness that we're discussing, what would your decision be here?
I have already reduced my exposure to Polkadot today. I think this is a fantastic asset. I think that is performing. It really reminds me of Ethereum in 2016, 17. So there's still higher potential. But right now, I reduce my exposure because we have to control our risk in the market. So it's very important.
Okay, and I think this is a really good advice, because opportunities are always going to be there. They're gonna come, and especially in crypto world, everything moves so fast. But you need to protect your capital, and if you're thinking about the trading range like we are, then you're gonna have ups and downs, and less exposure is better. All right.
So this is for intraday traders. A very interesting picture here, because there's potential to trade some intraday rotation from one asset to other within for example, the DeFi sector or mid caps. So basically, I see that there is some trade available here. For example, look at Thesis. Thesis is currently having this kind of sign of strength and baking up action, and could potentially retest the top of the capitulation bar. In the meanwhile, assets like VeChain, and we have released an update just a couple of days ago, have already done this path. So this is a very tricky spot, because I know that a lot of intraday traders generally look for assets that are performing very well. So what they do, they pick VeChain, and VeChain is could be already overextended on the intraday picture. What do you think about these tactics, Roman?
Yeah, I like this. I mean, when I was very heavily intraday trading when I was younger, that would be the strategy, just to compare two assets to each other on the intraday basis, and then create the understanding of how the structure unfolds just based on that. So obviously, something maybe like this, where we see an outperformance of the rally, and we could enter on the reaction with an idea that the intraday trade is going to take us, to the higher level. So I absolutely like this. You also could see some of the strength characteristics even in this formation right here, relative to Tezos. So lower high, and yet almost at the same level high right here. So VeChain obviously was showing some of the elements of strength, throughout the formation.
So Theta is currently outperforming the market, and a member of our community has pointed my attention also to the Theta versus Bitcoin chart, and look at what potential we have here for outperformance, because it looks like a causality for outperformance. So I would like to see a retest on the Theta Bitcoin chart, because it's important. All the concept of technical analysis are valid also for the relative strength and spread charts. And then we could be still in this uptrend. And very interesting, Roman. What do you think about this chart?
Yeah, and this is, you're always going to have an outlier, right? In the market, when the market is going down and has some kind of point of vulnerability or weakness, you always will find something that will still have an interest, and the price will go up. Now, this is not necessarily going to be, the best moves in the market when the market, in this instrument, when the overall market is going down, because market has such a immense gravity, and it, if you think about in analogs, like a big analogs, market is like this, big black hole that just sucks in everything, right? So but there are some distant stars that I'm going to be okay relative to that black hole. So, this is kind of like what it reminds me of, an outlier.
And then finally, this asset, I have published an update on our Discord channel. So basically, right now we're seeing a lot of supply. Look at high effort to the upside and low result on that last up bar that we had. But I was very curious to see here a retest, for example, as a higher low and then continuation. That would be a very bullish pattern. And look also the logarithmic scale. This is so beautiful. What do you think, Roman?
Yeah, another scenario here, and I like the test at the higher level as a point of continuation. And I think Alessia has more experience with this type of scenario, so I'm going to rely on his knowledge here. At the same time, this is definitely a meaningful reaction, although somewhat on par with what we've seen, let's say, somewhere here. I would say another possibility here, especially as we're trying to overcome this level, is that we could consolidate a little bit more and be in the trading range. And that could fall in line with the overall market outlook that we have, and then continuation. So how do we manage this? Well, we look at both scenarios, and then we just kind of see the confirmation of either one or another. Again, we're not trying to predict exactly what's going to happen, because this is where we're going to fail. We are trying just to develop an understanding of what might happen with different scenarios, and then follow the scenario that is unfolding. Also want to point your attention how supply came in, and then how supply came in again and increased, and we stopped right at this level. So that shows a little bit of presence of the supply. So we'll just have to see. All right. Well, Alessio, I think that's it. Your concluding thoughts?
We have to be very tactical this week, Roman. Very, very tactical.
But isn't it that for the most time we have to be tactical always?
Right? I know.
Yeah. I mean, there are some spots that are going to be easier. I think that's what you're saying, right? So there might be a market environment where the clarity of the market truth is so visible and it's easier to follow. And then there are some spots like this one, which are tricky. And usually those spots, and Alicia, I wonder if you would concur with me here, usually those spots come in the trading ranges. It's where volatility is up on both sides, and there is a lot of unpredictable movements up and down, because this is where the sentiment changes and therefore behavior of market participants changes. So they are more active with their buys and sells. And that's what creates the trading range. It's just like this uncertainty creates certain behavior, and that leads to the creation of the structure. Alessia.
I totally agree with you, Roman. And crypto is also well known for shakeouts, flash crash. So I think that this is very interesting structural point.
All right. Well, with that, that's it for today, guys. Thank you for being the members of the Discord group. And we'll, until the next crypto market discussion next week.